everyone, and welcome to the AI Talk Show. I'm Asha Saxena, and today we are going to explore another conversation that is important to our organizations around everything we're doing with data and AI. As the world of AI is constantly evolving, of course, with technology, with tools, with constant need for use cases, what becomes really important is that we show up, how we show up as leaders. I think it's important that the leaders, the quiet architects, I would say, of change, like the data and AI leaders, who make the complex world of data and AI into clarity. These leaders who build the technology into trust. We talk about applications, we talk about use cases, we talk about the value, but really it all boils down to, can we provide the data that we can trust, the technology that is clear and easy to understand. And it's all about building these systems, but they're shaping the culture also. In this fast changing world of transformation, I think culture becomes really, really critical. As we think about innovation, innovation doesn't happen in isolation. We talk about innovation with responsibility. We talk about AI that can reflect our organizational values, the data that doesn't just serve efficiency, but also the human purpose. Human becomes a critical element as we think about AI and what we are delivering today in our organization. So really, when we talk about true transformation, it's not just about the speed or scale, but it's about building organization, building your organization with intelligence, but also with technology that can amplify empathy, inclusion, and shared vision. At WLDA, we have actually built a whole organization based on that. We care about building a responsible world, a fair digital world. And I'm so glad that the members of WLDA are the leaders who care about doing the right thing. It's not just about the tools and the values, but also making sure that we're delivering this technology with ethical and responsible and the right culture with the right people, and making sure that people are involved as we think about it. And I'm so glad that we have one of our WLDA members, Sepideh, who's here, Chief Data and Analytics Officer at CareSet. Sepideh, welcome to the show. And I'm so glad that you're here to talk about not just the technology, this amazing AI technology, healthcare, where you are today, how you build data strategy, how you transform. You've done this in other organizations, and now you're on this new path in healthcare to bring data and the insights of data, the human insights, and also the technical depth of the data. So welcome to the show. I'm really excited that you're here.
Thanks, Asha. Thank you. And thanks for WLDA for bringing us together and creating this space. Yeah, it's an honor. It's an honor to be part of the community of leaders who, as you mentioned, not only shaping the culture of the technology, we are doing so with care, clarity, and conviction. Yeah, Sepideh Naseri, Chief Data Analytics Officer at CareSet. I've spent more than 20 years working across data, automation, analytics, AI, and mostly in highly regulated industry like healthcare and financial services. The topic of role of AI leaders and general readers in organizational AI transformation is deeply personal to me. I spent my career with intersection of innovation and stewardship, where algorithm means accountability, with the strategy and interception of for storytelling. So I'm honored to be part of this show, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm so glad. As you rightly said, I think it is about learning from each other. I think we all bring so much to the table, but also I love the fact that in WLDA we get to actually hear each other's experience, learn from each other, and provide the support, I think, which sometimes you feel lonely in this role. I think the role of Chief Data and AI leader is still evolving. It's evolving every day. It's changing every day with the technology. And I think the demand becomes really, really a lot on this role. Before we even get started, how do you see this role evolve from the traditional data leaders to now the data and AI leader? What does it mean, and how this role is evolving through this ever-changing technology?
So what is the stay still? Let's start with that. It's
Yeah.
a transformation, correct? So transformation is what we still are focusing on. Transformation is not just a single event, correct? It's a series of intentional choices. It's about deeply listening what organization is needed. It's designing systems that reflect with the value of the organization. But most importantly, building culture that is not just with the traditional leadership was transformational of the organization, but now we are adopting AI. And now we are building a culture that not just we are building systems, that adopt AI, but also we need to evolve with it. You know, I see our role more as an architecture of change, as you also touched it, on your opening. We are translating complexity into clarity. We are helping organization to move from scattered data to shared understanding. We are making automation. We that's a main change. The focus is very much around AI and data, and then how we are going to build technical fluency with emotional intelligence. It's all about creating conditions for transformation that feel strategically and also deep in human. you know and if I only focus on AI data and AI leaders, our responsibility goes beyond managing infrastructure, developing algorithms, developing AI models. It's not just technical. We are charged with fundamentally rewriting the organization nervous system to turn data and intelligence, ensuring this transformation not only efficient, impactful, but also aligned with the company core purpose and value.
You bring up a really important piece. We do talk about how great technology you can build, but if you can't align the humans, or don't bring the human in the loop, it truly can create a lot of challenges. Because you can be proud of your technology, but if the business can't really use it, and if you can't really get the people involved in making sure that there is a value, then you kind of lose the purpose of the technology. And it truly is about the culture, how you build the culture. As the data AI leader is building its own organization, it's actually the nervous system going into every single department to be able to provide the value. But the biggest challenge, which I feel, is the alignment. A lot of time the business and technology leaders are struggling with business wanting everything to today or yesterday, and technology trying to figure out what they even want, because sometimes the business leaders don't know what they want. As we're taking or designing this, supposedly this whole intelligent system, it's not just about performance, how good this technology can perform, but it's about the whole organization's value, or the purpose, or how these leaders can make sure that the algorithms which you're building, or the models you're building, are connecting to what the user truly wants. How do you think about, or how do you solve this alignment challenge as you're working within your own organization?
Yeah, that's a very good point, and I think it's one of the most challenging in modern technology and organizational leadership these days. Designing intelligence systems that not only effective in a technical manner, but also holistically social technological challenge. I want to go back to the framework of organizational success that we all always use, process, technology, people, and governance. So start with people technology. So I changed the order, but the four pillar, what's the matter, right? So what I think it's all start with the intention. Intelligence system should reflect the value of the people they serve, not just optimize performance. That's a key point. It's all about the process that moves far beyond technical checklists. It begins with the clear strategy to translate those abstract values like fairness into concrete operational principle and become red lines. And then a strategy must enforce with robust governance, with cross-functional oversight to ensure accountability. Governance, everybody, when it comes to governance, step back and then feel is slowness. But actually governance is not the constraint, it's a compass. We need to build that governance framework. We have to unlock it with creativity, with clarity. And that's where we build with empathy, and then we can move forward. Then it comes to the design of the process itself. It has to be human-centric. It needs to be inclusive, with diverse team, with cross-functional, capability, with continuous stakeholder feedback, to actively test and mitigate those bias. And what I want to say at the end is the culture of continuous adaptation. I try to touch on the leadership responsibility too. It's not just one-time change. It's also continuous monitoring, adapting, and real-world feedback. It's a constant loop to ensure the system evolves and remain aligned. And that's what makes AI very different. It's fast changing, it's evolving, and we need continuous realignment and making sure the organization purpose with the system and system supports all the initials of the organization purpose, supports the value of the organization. And most importantly, the clarity and ethical rigor. I think that's also is one of the challenges that we need to make sure that we create the continuous trust. A trust is the foundation of that scalable innovation, and all these process, people, technology, the governance, they all are trying to support that innovation together.
I like the fact that you touched upon the governance, but really when we think about, we spoke about the alignment. It's important that the business and technology is aligned, and we understand the value, we understand how we are incorporating the value system of the organization within our product, whatever product we are building, and we're true to our core values. But the big question comes, Sepideh, is the trust. The trust in the data, the trust in the models, and are these models giving us the right output? And when the trust comes, sometimes the trust is shaken because you're not getting the right output, the bias is not, or the data is not transparent, and you don't know where the lineage is. So can you talk a little bit more about the trust aspect? As the technology is building these fancy tools, the business needs to develop the trust in this output that they're seeing to be able to become a good user of this technology. What challenges do you see when you're trying to build the trust, or what could the listeners who are listening to our show right now, what could they learn from your experience as they think about building the trust in the community?
I think it comes back to culture. So trust is central of my leadership philosophy. And as AI leaders, we foster an environment when innovation and accountability coexist. So I see the culture as a true infrastructure. As a leader, we can just pick one. We have to build a system, reinforce each other. We do this by creating that psychological safety within the framework of earned trust. So it's not trust on our system, it's a trust in a process, it's a trust to our pillar. So technology going fast, the culture, if neutral, endures. That's what it comes from. So sustainable AI innovation that support the users, support the system, they don't come as a tool by itself alone. If we bring the tool and technology just as it is, it won't come with the trust and support that we expect. So that sustainable innovation comes with people who feel seen, who feel earned and empowered to contribute. On a process, when I touched on the pillar, I said the continuous feedback, the cross functional team. It's all about the culture. It's all about how we are looking at the challenge, how we are looking at that innovative, system, how we are looking at that initiatives that we are trying to move on for. So I learned many things, and I see that the most transformative breakthrough, they not come from as a new model, as a new system, but from the moment of shared understanding. That's the culture is built with core choices, how we listen, how we celebrate learning, but also respond to failure. And I think as a leader, we must model the mindset of how we want to scale, because the culture is not what we say, it's what we repeat, what we reward, what we protect. So making it short, leaders, we foster the innovation by acting, as an AI leader, as a data and analytics leader. We are chief architect of the system, not just chief judge. We build high trust sandbox. We provide tools for safe exploration. We hold people accountable for playing role, but following rules. And we are sharing what we learn together. I think this is where all together we bring a package that address the trust that you mentioned.
When we talk about the trust, and I love what you said, it's a culture that you can repeat. But when you talk about governance, you talk about, especially in healthcare data, privacy becomes really important. How you govern the data becomes really important. So the two questions: one is the privacy, and the second is innovation. So when you think about the guardrails and the governance and the risk and the privacy issue, there's a lot of don't do this, don't do that. But when you think about innovation in healthcare, because there's so much innovation that is possible in healthcare sector, what are you looking forward to as a chief data and analytics officer, chief data and AI officer? What are you hopeful for in this industry, the healthcare industry? And what are you worried about when you think about the privacy, the guardrails around the risk around this healthcare data? So the two-part question: what are you worried about and what are you excited about?
So the regulated environment is not something we can change immediately. And the regulation exists for a reason. So we can't ignore it, we can bypass it, but we need to understand what we need to do in order to set up a right control, the right framework to be able to mitigate the risk. And it's not just by healthcare companies, it's not by healthcare providers that we need to do. We need to work closely with the government at the same time. Who governing these rules and regulations, how we are going to control it, what we need to do in order to support the regulatories, and then what we need from them to support us to be able to be innovative, to be able to move forward, to be able to provide the right support to patients, to healthcare system, but also making sure that we are supporting all the controls and be mitigating all the risk. So I think it's hand by hand. It's not one way. It's not that we can, only expect the regulation to change. Regulations cannot change. They has been here for a long time, and that they are going to be, because they are the framework that build that trust that we originally trust in the system. So we need to make sure that the innovation support it and then adapt to it. And I think it's exciting, but also is one of the challenges in all regulated. It's not just healthcare either. In a financial industry that
Financial services, exactly.
and it's existed. So it's both sides. But what excites me is there are many opportunities. There have been a lot of thinking. There had been a lot of conversation around it. We are not alone. We are working all together. There is a strong relationship between all the healthcare providers, supporters, backbone, as well as the regulatory standpoint on the other side, that we are looking forward to how to be better, how to use innovation, and then how to support each other. So that excites me more, because we are not facing each other, we are working together.
I think that there's so much possibility, right? And I love the fact that in healthcare, it's going to get more personalized. I will be able to get, the treatments for me. Health my health, take control of my health, well-being. I think there's so much potential of having AI in healthcare, just for better health, preventive care, drug discoveries, diagnosing diseases, early on. So there's so much possibility that really, really excites me. But as you think about all that good that comes with it, there's always the concern about the bias, the ethical use. One of the WLDA members actually was telling me the story that one of their team members came to her and said, we don't have enough female data and we are doing this drug discovery. I cannot continue my research unless I have more data for women. So she went out and got the extra data set, and the whole results were changed. So the fact that we have team members who care about making sure they're doing the right thing, they're identifying the biases, they're identifying how, uh, the proper use, the responsible use of AI is happening from the very beginning, in the infrastructure. That makes me hopeful. So it's people and the technology. There is technology available now that can detect the biases, can help us, give us the frameworks who understand the value for it. I think it's the marriage between doing the right thing, people, process, and technology. It's all coming together.
Yes, and ethical aspect with AI become more strong. Part of the AI is ethical use and making sure monitoring it for any bias. And we always had it as part of any transformation, any discovery, any evaluation. But when AI come into play, those become more strong. And we are monitoring for those specific aspects very more closely. So that's a strong tool that help us, support us, making sure that we are using the data into innovation in the right way.
Yeah.
And that's another excitement that I see, that we have a stronger tool compared to what we used to have to help us, support us toward achieving the goal of the trust, the goal of ethical use, and making sure there is no bias in our analytical thinking.
So much optimism, with the technology. There's always, when I go to conferences and I'm doing the keynote, people will come up to me and say, oh, but there's deepfake, but there's this or that, aren't you worried about AI becoming rogue? Of course, there's, glass half empty or half full. It's how you see it. I say that science, there's so many people who worry about science in general. You worry about biological discoveries or chemical or nuclear. Any of these scientific discoveries could do good in the world or bad in the world. It's how you, as humans, we take the responsibility of showing up. So I think there is a lot of good as leaders, and especially on LinkedIn community. I feel like we have so many amazing leaders who are creating such great solutions for their organization. They're doing such good work. And I think it's all about having these conversations to make sure that we are, sharing, learning about the roadblocks, learning about the best practices from each other, and continue progressing forward. Sepideh, I could continue talking to you for hours, but I know that we have limited time. And I want to thank you so much for coming today and having this discussion with us.
Thank you so much, Asha. And again, thanks, WLDA, for holding this space for such a care. It's been privilege. So
I have said the best part, and I always say that I've built technology companies, I've done consulting, I've built solutions. I teach at Columbia, but WLDA is one of my favorite things I do, because I feel like bringing this community together where we actually support each other, cheer for each other.
Thanks, Asha. Yeah, it is a privilege here first, to sharing my thoughts with the team members. It's been my privilege to be part of the WLDA, to gain insight from many great leaders, learn from them, understanding the trust and culture, working through the long-term impact. And I like the fact that we are sharing stories together and we are supporting each other. This is one of the great experience that I had. And I know we always work with clarity, integrity, and design with purpose. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to share this journey today. We'll all, LinkedIn members and who are with us today. It's been a great journey. I'm excited about what we continue to working together. And thank you for letting me sharing my story today.
Thank you. And today, I feel like our discussion today reminds me that data and AI transformation isn't just about technical challenge. It is about leadership. It's leadership calling. Technology can automate our process, of course. It can take wisdom to build organizations that are fair, transparent, and human-centered, I think, which is really critical as we're building our solutions. This is the decade where leaders will shape and transform organization who see data just not as an asset to control, but also the language of trust. I think that is a key where, I bring up trust because I think if as data leaders, we can create this trust, we can build AI tools, which are not just tools to replace people, but to become the force to elevate them. Just excited that we can have these conversations. I feel really lucky that I get to have this conversation with amazing leaders on LinkedIn Live, and also hear you all. So if you continue engaging, continue asking us questions, we'll continue bringing some amazing leaders and amazing discussion. Want to hear? So please continue giving us feedback. Thank you for joining. This is Asha Saxena, and I will see you next time. Thank you.
Thanks.